Hi everyone, welcome back to our science class. My name is Teacher Yuri, and in today's video we are going to continue our lesson about classifications of living things. Classifications between animals is done. We also have did our classification for plants the last video, and this time we are going to understand what are the living things that belong to the other living things, the category of other living things, which are basically not plants and they are also not animals. Okay, so today we are going to study all about fungi, algae, and bacteria. So these living things do not belong to either plants or animals. Okay, so they are classified into other living things. Alright, those three. We have fungi, algae, and bacteria. Alright, let's begin with the fungi. So, what are the characteristics of fungi? Now, fungi are a special group of living things. They are neither plants nor animals. They are not plants, they are also not animals. They cannot carry out photosynthesis, okay? So these living things cannot carry out photosynthesis. They cannot produce their own food. So, because they do not have chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is very important in the process of photosynthesis because it actually traps the energy from the sun. Okay, so without chlorophyll we cannot trap the energy from the sun, which makes the process incomplete. That's why they cannot carry out photosynthesis. So instead, fungi get nutrients by breaking down dead plants and animals. So basically, this is what decomposers do. So they break down dead plants and animals. For example, one example of a fungi is a mushroom, which is basically they are growing on dead plants or dead trees in the forest, or dead animals or feces of animals. So they break down dead organisms and get the nutrients from that. So that is how these organisms or these living things survive, particularly the fungi. So examples of fungi include, as Bob mentioned a while ago, mushrooms, molds, and yeasts. Okay, so some mushrooms, these are examples of the mushrooms that are both edible and poisonous. Now, edible means they can be eaten, you can eat them, while poisonous mushrooms are very dangerous and can cause death when you eat them. Okay, so one of the edible mushrooms are the button mushrooms. Basically, most commonly, these are the mushrooms that you can find being canned. Like they are put in a can and sold in stores in cans. So basically these are the mushrooms that you can see there. So button mushrooms. And one example of a very poisonous mushroom is the toadstools. These kind of mushrooms are actually orangey or red in color, and it has like white dots on it. Okay, so these are what we call the toadstools mushroom. These mushrooms cannot be eaten, while the button mushroom can be eaten. Another example of fungi is the mold. So these ones, mold may sometimes grow on bread. Okay, they also grow in some areas of our house sometimes when it's like damp or there is a little amount of water, they grow there. But mostly they grow on bread sometimes. Like for example, when the bread is not good anymore, they grow on bread. And molds are dangerous. They can trigger allergic reaction, for example sneezing or redness of the eyes or coughing when you inhale spores of mold. So they are harmful for us, so you have to take care when in times that you can encounter mold. Sometimes we just find them in the walls of our houses, sometimes on like rotten or expired bread. So you have to be careful with molds because they could trigger allergic reaction for human beings. All right, so let's move on to the next one. We have the algae. Now algae are a large group of living things that can carry out photosynthesis. So unlike the fungi, the algae can actually carry out photosynthesis. They do not have stems, roots, leaves, and flowers. And algae usually grow in seas, lakes, or ponds, but they can also survive on land. So basically this organism can grow either on land or on water. So they grow mostly on seas, lakes, or ponds, but they can always survive on land sometimes. Now these organisms can carry out photosynthesis, although they do not have stems, roots, leaves, and flowers. Alright? Usually algae are green in color. Now, one example of algae is seaweed. Okay, so I think most of us have eaten seaweeds, and also we can the nori that we have in our sushi is the seaweed. And also there are some seaweeds that are edible. They are put in a salad sometimes, and you can eat them raw, and you can eat seaweeds, and this is an example of an algae. So when fertilizers, for example, you fertilize your plants and it gets washed out into the river, they can cause algae to grow very quickly. This increased growth of algae negatively affects other living things in the river. So sometimes when the fertilizers in our plants are washed out in the river, it can fertilize the algae as well. So they grow a lot, and sometimes it creates not a good effect, not just for the river, the drainage, but also for other living things.
Algae. Algae belong to the lower group of plant kingdom. The plant body is called thallus, which may be unicellular, colonial, filamentous, branched and unbranched, and sometimes highly modified. They occur in land as well as in water. Based on pigmentation, they are classified into red, brown, and green algae. Most of the algae are photoautotrophic. Giant ocean algae are called seaweeds. Occurrence of algae. Algae are aquatic plants found both in fresh water and seawater. For this reason, they are sometimes called the grass of water. Algae are found in sea, rivers, moist places, barks of trees, wet and shady rocks, etc. Their size ranges from 1 micron across to several meters in length. Nutrition in algae. Algae contain chlorophyll and are green in color. They are autotrophic and can manufacture their own food by photosynthesis. Reproduction. Algae reproduce by vegetative sexual and asexual methods.
Let's go to the last one. The third one that we are going to learn today are the bacteria. Okay, I think from the three other living things that we have discussed today, the most common one is the bacteria. So bacteria are all around us. They can even be found inside our bodies. Yes. and bacteria are too small that we need to use a microscope to look at them. So basically, if you have bacteria in your hands and you get to use your hand to pick up the food and put them in your mouth and eat it, you can possibly ingest the bacteria that is in your hand. Why? Because we cannot see them. Our table might have bacteria. We have bacteria maybe on our phones. We have bacteria in our hands. That is why it is always advised to wash your hands before eating, because that we cannot see the bacteria. There are bacteria that are helpful, but there are also bacteria that you don't want them inside your body. So we have to wash our hands every time we put something in your mouth. Okay, so some bacteria have long and thin structures called flagella that help them move around. So there are different shapes of bacteria. There are like round bacteria. There are elongated bacteria. I'm going to show you examples of those kinds of bacteria in the next video that I'm going to show you. Some bacteria make us sick. Okay, and some bacteria are very helpful to us. Okay, that's why we have this what we call good bacteria and bad bacteria. So like fungi, bacteria break down dead plants and animals. Okay, this allows nutrients to return to the soil, which help in plant growth. Okay, so some bacteria are used to make food, such as cheese and yogurt. So in order for us to create cheese and yogurt, we actually need some bacteria. Okay, this type of bacteria are actually helpful for us. They're actually helpful for our digestion. Now, but there are some bacteria that are not good for us. That's why we need to clean our hands, clean our body, to avoid those kinds of bacteria. So like the fungi, bacteria are also breaking down dead plants and animals. So they are decomposers. Now they are very, very helpful in that matter, because they help in bringing back the nutrients into the soil. And if the soil is very nutritious, we can expect a very good growth in the plants. Okay, so those are the three other living things that we have discussed today. We have the fungi, the algae, and the bacteria. Now let's go to your workbook and let us check what you have learned today, if you were able to recall all the information that we have discussed today. I will see you on the next one, and I hope you have a very good day. Bye.
Welcome back to episode 5 of our science. So today we are going to go through fungi and microorganisms. Okay. Fungi are neither plants nor animals, means they're not plants and they're not animals. Fungi do not have chlorophyll, so they cannot make their own food. They feed on the things that they grow on. The mushroom feeds on the dead log, while the bracket fungus feeds on the live tree. Fungi grow well in warm, moist, and dark places. Most fungi reproduce by spores. Yeast is a microscopic fungi that reproduces by a method called budding. Some fungi are edible while some are inedible. Examples of edible fungi include yeast, shiitake mushroom, button mushroom, straw mushroom, and abalone mushroom. Examples of inedible fungi are toadstool, puffball, bread mold, and bracket fungus. Fungi like mushrooms have three parts: the cap, the gills, and the stalk. Okay guys, a tip. The gills of the fungi are not the gills that fish use. It is a different type of gills which stores the spores inside. Okay? The gills contain spore bags that contain spores. Microorganisms. Microorganisms are tiny living things that cannot be seen with our naked eye. A microscope is needed to see microorganisms. Examples of microorganisms are bacteria, amoeba, virus, algae, euglena, and paramecium. Some bacteria are useful or some are harmful. Useful bacteria can be used in the production of cheese, yogurt, and vinegar. Good bacteria in our stomach help in digesting food. Harmful bacteria known as germs can cause diseases like flu, chickenpox, and the pneumonia. Okay guys, so hurry, like and subscribe, ring notifications so you'll be ready for our next video. So guys.